closer to that, yes, because I'm here, but that way I can look at you. Thank you so much for coming. Hi, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming today. Hello, how are you? Yes, good to see you. Yes, I'm so thrilled to be here. So, and please just know anything I can do to help in any time, whatever. I'm just a big fan.
Truly
So
appreciate that, and I actually remember speaking to you at Cezanne, and I enjoyed that conversation. And we're talking about doing this, and it's fantastic to get him.
yes,
So I'm really
yes,
interested in
yes.
the subject.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I think we're going to wait a few more minutes.
Yes.
We have about 85 already.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh my God, you are too wonderful. How are you? That's so sweet of you to come. You're so sweet. Thank you.
Are you in conversation with Michael tonight, or?
No, it's going to be with Sean Scully. Okay. So yeah. So how are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
We're doing another week.
Yes. I know, it's so exciting.
Well, we're doing like a third.
A third printing?
Yeah.
Good.
They're doing small printing.
Yes. So I can say that. I can say we're going into third reprint. Okay, good. Oh, good. Yeah, because there were a couple of things like I was like, how did I not catch that little error?
And we just got those.
That's good. Okay, good. Because it was just stupid things like, saying this was 7 and it was actually 6 and whatever. So yeah. So anyway, thank you. I'm so thrilled to hear that. So yeah. Yeah, it's very good news. So what else? Tell me what else is going on with you. What fun things?
Saturday is my oldest's birthday.
How old?
He'll be 19.
And so he's in college this year?
Yeah, but he has fall break this weekend.
Got it. So he's coming home. And where is he now?
He's at Stony Brook.
Oh, great. Oh, yes. Yeah. Physics? Oh, my gosh. But how nice that he's coming home, wants to come home for his birthday. That's
kind of a homebody.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. And it's so funny. I'll tell you this interesting bit of gossip that you'll find interesting.
Okay.
I did a panel yesterday with Pam Giacarino, who was the editor, and she's still with the company, but she's not at Lux anymore. And she said that they've had record levels of complaints to HR about Jill.
I believe that she told me she got yelled at for something she said.
Yes, but yes. And I was like, this doesn't surprise me because she's not a corporate person.
Yeah, I know.
Is that yes? But I thought it was funny because
Good.
But,
I never see her anymore.
No, she's so busy. Yeah. I'm so touched you came here tonight. Thank you. No, seriously, thank you.
We started to take a look at CalArts.
Oh, good.
After your talk.
Good.
So
You're thinking maybe it's possible. Yes, yeah.
if she applies.
Yeah, please do, because it's a really amazing. I mean, it's a great. I mean, it really. Theater is amazing. Art is really great. Film is amazing. I mean, there's like a couple of programs. Music is actually very good. Music composition is amazing there, and like. Ravi Shankar, the sitarist from the 70s, he was a professor there, and I mean, it's always been sort of experimental in terms of music, theater, everything.
So. Your dad become
because he was vice chairman of Disney, and Walt Disney funded the school, and he's like, I want you to spearhead this, and basically. Bring in people, because my father started Tisch School of the Arts. So he got Bob Tisch involved and gave, so he's always sort of straddled business. NYU, yeah.
Another good theater.
Yeah, so he always sort of straddled academia and business. So he was always able to bring people together and artists together and.
Great.
Oh yeah, right.
I'm so excited.
So I mean, it was just a wonderful,
great, and so I'm really happy
thing. So it was,
I
and then Walt Disney died, so he then went back and then worked at Disney for a while, interesting to grow up in a household with someone again, and I guess maybe it's the first time I've actually even put that together of someone who can mix art and business.
Yeah, well, when you were saying that,
yes.
Well, and he was so. I mean,
thank you again. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
What did you think about book 4?
Yes, exactly. I always try to go around to talk to people before, because I always think it's a good thing to it makes them feel like more connected when you talk. So, but thank you. I just want to thank you so much for coming. I'm Timothy. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm Avery.
Hi, Avery. Good to see you. Thank you. So, are you guys students here?
Yes.
Good.
My grandmother actually came up here since she wanted to.
Oh, I love your grandmother. I just sent her an email last week saying how beautiful her house in the new magazine was. So that's great. So it's in the blood then. Yes.
Well, I'm so happy to be in this grade.
Yeah. And how long in the program are you?
We're in the 3-year master's program. We're in the first year.
Wow, great. And you're loving it?
Yeah, we're loving it.
Yeah. Oh, good. And how did you choose this school?
I was pretty open-minded, but once I toured it back in August, I loved how comprehensive the program was, and all the students here are so committed to pursuing a career in interior design.
There's also one of the few grad programs where they kind of taught you all the things that you would learn in undergrad as well, because it's 3 years.
Right.
So that was kind of-
No. What I mean is we changed.
Good. And what did you guys study undergrad?
I was an art history major.
Okay, good. And what you?
I actually studied public health,
Oh, wow.
so I thought I wanted to do something else for a little bit, but
We're actually going to be talking tonight about, because I had a whole different career before this, and about how what you did, whether it's public health or whatever, actually is so applicable in design, and in ways you're not even going to anticipate. So, yes.
It took them a while, I think, to
Yeah. So good. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Hi, I just want to thank you so much for coming. I'm Timothy Corrigan. Hi, Nancy. Good to meet you. Thank you. So,
yeah,
fabulous. That's great. And are you guys practicing designers?
he is. He's our next one.
Somewhat.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a real estate broker combined with a little staging and trying to get back into this because it's
Okay.
more exciting.
Which I really love. Yes. Yeah. That's fabulous, and it's such a great school.
Yeah.
It really is.
Thank you.
It's
Wonderful for you to stop by.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And Dennis Scully is such a great interviewer. So I mean, yes, he asks the best questions, and he's so special. So yes, well, thank you for coming. Thank you. Those are great pants. I'm Timothy. How are you? Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
A mutual person we know.
Yes.
Your Uncle Michael.
Oh my goodness! Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah.
How do you know Michael?
I have a very dear friend who is his current girlfriend.
Oh, how funny! Oh, how great!
Yeah,
Oh,
that's how we
he's
met.
a wonderful guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, and then
Yes.
also a contractor I worked with in Connecticut. His father was Michael's roommate at school. So
Oh.
it's like,
We're at South Kent or at?
Yeah.
No, oh, how funny!
yeah, totally 6 degrees of separation.
Very 6 degrees. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, so good.
Anyway,
Well, and you live here in the city?
yeah, and we're up in Connecticut too.
Okay, good. Well, I'm so thrilled you came. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good to see you.
Sure. Okay.
May I introduce you to Dennis's mother, Nancy?
Oh, hello. How are you? It's so lovely to see you. How are you? And you're so elegant. My goodness. Yes.
I mean, but what would you like?
And you actually live near here, yes? Across, yes.
71st Street.
Oh, fabulous! So it's a great neighborhood. So yes,
We think so.
yes.
But I understand that you're here and you're in Paris too. So
Okay.
that's a
I'm actually in Los
Okay.
Angeles, in Paris.
All right. Well,
So yes, so it's a bit different than New York, but I lived here for a number of years. It's a great city.
when I said meant Europe
Okay.
in the United
Okay.
Oh, in the yes. Here. Yeah, the larger here. Yes. So, yes. Well, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, truly, your son is the best interviewer. I was just saying to someone else, he's the best interviewer anywhere. So, anyway, thank you. Hello, darling. Oh, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good
Oh,
to
it's so
see
good
you.
to
I
see you.
made it.
I know. I'm so glad I was get to talk to the kids, and I know.
Yeah,
So yes. Oh, I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so
Oh,
happy to see you too.
good goodness. Yes. So we'll definitely be able to talk afterwards. So yes, because I don't.
and I need and I'll get my.
Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
People were still strolling in, so we didn't want to open up in front of our microphones.
Okay.
Serious. Yeah.
1 second, she said.
You
Oh, they've got to turn the music off.
We have the president of the school helping out with the AV. That's great. Yeah. He's hands-on. Okay. Yeah. All right. I know. Little feedback. That's fine. You tell me when that mic sounds at the right level. Does that sound good? Does anyone want to move up?
Yes.
Yes? Come on, come closer, people. Come on, people. Honestly, Timothy, do they think we're going to...
I promise I won't bite you.
Have you not met him? He's very friendly. Very friendly. Don't...
Come up. There we go.
There you go. All right. Look at this.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're actually friends, so
Are
yes,
they?
yes.
Okay.
So an old friend from Paris days.
Friends. Sure, slide in. Oh, absolutely. Did you come in from out of town? Are you local?
I'm 10 blocks away.
You're 10
But
blocks away?
the young one's from Versailles, from Paris.
From Paris?
Yes.
Oh, my
Yes.
goodness.
Yes.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Wow.
Which one's from Versailles?
This young woman right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, a lot of people are going to want to chat you up. So you oh, who's from Versailles? Yeah, over here. Yeah, okay. Great. No, sure. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of new friends by the end of the evening. We'll get your name. You see how nice I placed your book up here?
Yes, I love that.
I mean, they're available behind us. So, if you didn't have a chance before, feel free.
Yes, and you won't get out.
Okay, well, good. All right, well, let's jump in. Yeah, sure, come. All right, see? No. He's not afraid to move close. I'm so glad about that. Okay, fantastic. So, hello and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for coming. I'm Dennis Scully, for those of you who might not know. I'm the host of the Business of Home podcast, and I'm also the curator of the Dialogues on Design series here at the New York School of Interior Design. How's that mic level? Does that sound good? Okay, great. Okay. So, through subscriptions and sponsorships, these conversations raise money for our scholarship programs, including our diversity scholarship and our pre-college scholarship program. Come on in, plenty of seats. I'm so grateful to everyone who has contributed to making this program possible, and I want to give a special thanks to the people mentioned behind me who have sponsored and supported, and I wonder if you could join me in giving them a
Yay.
for their support. Their generosity is greatly appreciated by the school and the students, by me. So tonight I have the great honor of welcoming celebrated interior designer Timothy Corrigan. Among Timothy's many accolades, he's been named to the AD 100 Hall of Fame, the Eldecore A-List, along with receiving numerous other interior design-related awards. He's celebrated for his seamlessly blending European elegance and modern comfort, but also inviting and livable spaces, which we'll actually talk about a great deal tonight. He is the only American to be honored by the French Heritage Society for his restoration of several national landmarks in France, which poignantly is a bit of a double-edged sword because it draws attention to the fact that Timothy suffers from an addiction, actually, to buying and restoring French chateaus. A condition we're going to help him talk about tonight,
Yes.
in what I hope you will all join me in creating a safe space so that we can talk about this with Timothy. That being said, I doubt that you will meet a more kind and generous French chateau owner than Timothy Corrigan. And I'm so grateful
That's great.
to make the time to be here. Will you please join me in welcoming him?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I just want to say it's such a great pleasure to be here, and what I really love is that we've got so many students here tonight because it's so important, to be able to talk to students and be able to have students ask questions about where they are in their learning. And we're going to be talking a lot about. I spoke to some of you. You're doing different things in your career right now, and you're looking at switching to design, and we're going to talk about that because it's something that I did as well. So I'm looking forward to talking with you and hearing your questions as well. So thank you for coming.
Exactly, and thank you so much for that. And let's see a show of hands of how many students we have in the
Yay!
Okay. Wow.
Great, thrilled.
That is fantastic, and we're so thrilled about that. And as Timothy was just suggesting, one of the interesting things about NYSID is that so many of our students are exploring their second career, sometimes even their third career. But I know that we were chatting with even a few people that were talking to us about their eagerness to perhaps get out of what they're doing, and it sounds like heads are nodding up in the front as well. So let's talk a little bit about your early career, which wasn't interior design, but was instead, well, you tell us.
So I started out in advertising, and I was working for a big advertising agency here in the US. And it was a privately held agency, and we got acquired. We're the #2 agency in the world. And we were acquired by a very small little English agency called Saatchi & Saatchi. But when they bought us, they became the #2 agency. And they actually asked me to go over at the age of 30 to run our European operations. So at the age of 30, I moved to Paris, and I ran our international offices in Paris, in Europe. So I was responsible for 36 offices all over Paris, all over Europe. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And just by chance, my apartment in Paris, which I decorated, got featured in House and Garden. And then my house in the country, which I renovated, was featured in World of Interiors. And people started asking me if I would help them do design work on the side. And I started doing that and enjoying that. And then I got promoted and moved after 7 years in Paris, and moved back to America and was the president of the international division of Saatchi & Saatchi, where I then was responsible for 197 offices in 89 countries and 6,000 employees. And it was a great job, except when you're running that big an operation, you're so far removed from the reason that you got into the business in the first place, which was creativity. And what I was basically, I could have been running a company that was selling paper clips. It wasn't, there was nothing creative. I was just putting out fires. But all along, I was still doing my nighttime job, which was helping people with design on the side. And I sort of reached a point where I sort of said, and it was my father died very suddenly at the age of 65, and I thought, you know, life is short. You got to be doing what you really want to be doing. And I see a lot of people nodding their heads here because it is true. You may be doing something that, like you got into it for whatever reason and you enjoyed it maybe at first, but after a while you start to say, I don't know, this is for me. And that's really what I went through. And so I decided, really in the middle of you know, the career, I looked at my boss, who was the chairman, and he was doing the same kind of crazy things that I was doing. I was like thinking, it's not going to get any better. It's going to just be more of this. And so I decided to leave and to leave advertising and sort of create my own design firm. And it was, you know, I think everyone thought I was crazy and midlife crisis and all those things. But I fundamentally believe that when you are following your passion, the universe will support you, and it really will. You really will succeed. So I say that to all of you who are looking at you know, who are back in school, who are taking classes here. Really give yourself the support and the credit to do this, because if this is the right path, it will succeed for you. So
Timothy, let's speak nicely about your advertising career, and let's talk a little bit about what you learned from all of those years, because as you say, you were managing a great many people all over the world.
I think the thing that I learned the most from, and it's a great question, is from working in advertising, working in marketing, is listening to the consumer, listening to your audience, listening to what their needs are, what they want, and then trying to satisfy those needs, as opposed to sell them a product that you want to sell them, but try to really figure out, well, how can I uniquely solve their needs, their wants? How can I deliver that? And that really very much informed who I am as a designer today too. To give you a sense, there are some designers who will show one or two options and sort of say, this is it. This is why you hired me, and if you don't like it, then you should, you know, why are you with me? Because I know what's right. I don't take that approach at all. What I learned was you have to really try to create and give this consumer, or in this case, your client, really what is the best thing that they want, and get them involved in the process of creating their own space, whether it's a home or whatever it is, that make them feel that they have the ownership of it. Because when they have the ownership, they actually invest in that. They feel much more proud of it at the end. They don't feel like it's the designer who shoved a look down their throat. But what's interesting is that I've discovered that it actually translates into a lot of repeat business. Over 75% of our business is repeat business from the same client who's come back either for a second house or whatever. And so that only happens because they not only liked the end product, but they also liked the experience of how you got there. So I think that was a large part of what I learned. And the other part that I think that I learned was the importance of positioning yourself as a designer. There are so many designers out there, and why should someone come to you versus someone else? And so there's a phrase that you probably may have heard called the elevator pitch, which is if you're getting on the first floor and you get off on the third floor, and someone says, well, you're a designer, why should I come to you? That you can succinctly say, well, here's what I'm known for. So what I'm known for is European elegance infused with California comfort. It's those two things together so that they don't have to be against each other. They can actually be integrated with each other.
See how we did that? And the audience is nodding and going, yeah.
But it makes it so much easier when you can say, this is why you should come to me versus someone else. So I think it's that aspect of really trying to figure out what the consumer, your client wants, delivering on that, and then being able to position yourself differently. I remember when I was named to the AD 100. I'd only been working in design for 5 or 6 years when I was named to the AD 100, and they actually wrote about the fact that they said Corrigan believes that the most successful room in the world is not the most beautiful room in the world is not successful if it's not also comfortable. Well, now we all today think that sounds pretty obvious, right? Back then, I mean, all those years ago, comfort was not one of the things you necessarily strived for. It was all about how it looked. And I was from the beginning saying, no, if it's not comfortable, it's not successful. So I think, again, that was that aspect of marrying those two things together that helped set me apart and helped me build my business.
Where did you develop, Timothy, the charm, the people skills, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to be greeted individually by Timothy yeah? We're just going to do some handheld?
Okay, good.
Oh,
all right.
See, but then I might start doing karaoke. That's I'm going to put the handheld. We'll get to the karaoke.
Oh, no, I don't want to get to karaoke at all.
No. I know you've got a karaoke song, but we'll talk about that later. But I want to talk about where you developed the skill to make everybody you come in contact with feel seen and heard. The lovely woman who is putting the books together in the back from Italy, who's yet welcome. You were engaged. I mean, practically everyone in the room. I mean, you can all nod your heads. I mean, I hope you all had a chance to talk to him. If not, he'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.
Absolutely.
But that is such a gift, and I want to know where that came from.
Well, thank you. I don't know. I mean, thank you. I don't know that it's necessarily a gift. I think it's really about acknowledging every individual as a human being that you want to connect with. And I actually will sort of force myself, let's say at a checkout stand, to sort of say, how's your day going? I say that to TSA agents, and they're always like, oh, well, fine, are you sure? They're like not expecting that.
So some people are a little...
Yeah, some people don't love it, but but I think it's so important. I think because I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of celebrities and royalty and things like that, and what I've realized with working with all of them as well is at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. We all just need to connect with each other. And I also sort of feel, this is going to sound crazy, but we're all basically, in some ways, still little children inside and with the pain and hurts of a 3 or 4-year-old, a 7-year-old. And if you can learn to connect with individuals on that sort of basic level. I think it makes life so much better.
Yeah. No, and I think I was sort of mentioning this to you both earlier. I mean, as much as I want you to learn from his incredible work, I just feel like Timothy's very being is something that I think we can all learn from, because there's just an energy and a connection that he makes that, again, to your point, I think everyone is longing to feel heard and seen, and you just have such a seemingly effortless way of.
Well, I just have to say we do have a celebrity in the room. We have Margaret Russell, who's one of the most. She's
sorry.
She really is.
You like this.
I would say the queen of design and media, and she wrote. She was so kind. I was receiving an award. And she videoed it. Everyone was videoing, and she was so sweet. She said, they were interviewing her, and she said, "So is that all? Is that all the questions you have to ask?" And they said, "Yeah, that's it. Unless you have something else to say." And she said, "Well, yeah, I actually do." She said, more than anything else, he's really just a really good guy. And I mean, I have tears in my eyes when I even say that. But to me, that's worth so much more than any award, anything else, is being someone that at the end of the day people say, wow, he was a really good person. And I think that's something we really all should be striving for, is someone that...
I agree, and I wish more people were on that page, because I talk to a lot of people, Timothy, who aren't quite on that same page, no. But there's much to be learned. Margaret's going to regret sitting in the front row. She's never going to come back. She's never going to come back now to the talk. So I've been so excited to have her here, and now
it's a huge honor for me to have her here.
Well,
so.
it's an honor for us all, and we're thrilled. And now she's never going to come back. So great. It was great having you, though. Really, and we'll miss you. We really will. But Timothy, what I want to also, and we're gonna jump into Timothy's work, and I want to talk about. And we'll talk about Timothy's little bit of an issue with the French chateaus, and we'll talk about that. And I chatted with some of your friends about it, and they're concerned too. And I feel they're here for support.
Yes,
tonight, which is nice. But I want to talk a little bit about some of what you brought with you from what you learned on the business side, because you, dare I say it, not classically trained in interior design. But you brought a business sensibility and an approach to looking at this whole industry that I think has served you well. So talk to me.
It's interesting. We actually, as a company, make a point of hiring people who have come from other fields. Because and to give you a sense of that, we've had Morgan Stanley investment bankers. We've had a brain surgeon. We've had a Broadway dancer. We've had agent from CAA. We've had, you name it. Because I have really learned that people who come from another field actually bring so much more to the business as a designer. They also have come with a passion because they've tried something else and they realize this is really what they want to be doing. But what's so interesting, and I even say we've had it with I want to say housewives, mothers who've gone back and gone, is that whether they were a mother, whether they were an investment banker, whatever it is, they're going to find things from that previous career, that previous experience, that will be absolutely applicable in the field of design. And that's one of the things that's so extraordinary about design, is that what you're really, and it's particularly true in residential, I think it's probably true in hospitality as well, perhaps less in commercial, but is that there are going to be aspects that you're learning, because it's really about figuring out how to make people's lives better. And there are going to be aspects of what you've done earlier that will apply to that. So I think that's one of the things that I really look at is looking at that, looking to see what they're bringing to it, and it does make them better designers. So I think that's one thing. The other thing I would say is having come from another business, I realize that design is a business. that you actually, the creative part of it, as wonderful it is, actually represents probably no more than 30% of your daily experience as a designer. Once you develop that concept and you maybe choose the furniture and the fabric and whatever, the rest of it is the logistics of getting that done, getting it built, getting it ordered, getting it created, checking on it, getting it delivered, getting all those other aspects. So again, and you're using your client's hard-earned money. And so I think that it's so critical to develop strong business skills as well, because you may be the most creative person in the world, but unless you also realize that you are a business person as well, you will not be successful. And you will lose your client's money and in the end, your own money. So it's really essential that you develop those business skills as well.
And for you, what did that mean? So in design, we talk so much about the various ways that you can charge and how you explain to your clients the financial side of it. Where did you end up coming down? Great.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I am...
I should do this for a living.
No, he should.
Really. I should really.
I am fanatical on this issue of transparency, that our business, the design business, particularly residential, does not always have the best reputation. People have had bad experiences with designers who they feel ripped off, they feel they've been cheated, they feel they haven't been told the truth. And I cringe when I am hiring someone and they'll say, and I'll ask questions and they'll say, well, at our firm, we said it, we bought it for $10 and we said we bought it for $20 and we then marked it up and whatever. And you sit there and think, ooh. I mean, and there are many, many worse examples that I've heard of that. That probably worked for a long time. But today, with the internet, with the availability of information, consumers can find out what anything costs. They can find out where it comes from. They can find out, I mean, before designers wouldn't say, oh, I never say, what the name of the fabric company is or what this. They can find any of that information today. So you have got to practice with complete transparency. And not make your business model based on how you're going to squeeze a little money out of the client this way or that way. I think you've really got to look at that aspect of transparency, so that if I buy something at the Paris flea market for 10 euros, I can't even tell you how many times where the dealer will say, well, what do you want me to write as the price on the receipt? And I'll say, no, 10 euros, that's it. And they're just so surprised, because they're so used to designers saying, oh yeah, make that 20 euros. And so it's so essential to have that sense of transparency. And I will tell you that when you show that to clients and you show that you are being that total transparency, they start to develop a sense of trust in you. And trust is the thing that I've actually learned from all my experience in business, is probably the most important element. Because when you have that trust, you can screw up, and they're going to forgive you. If you don't have that trust, and if you lose their trust, it's very difficult to rebuild it. So I would say that from a business standpoint, be totally transparent about how you charge, what you do. During the pandemic, one of my very closest friends is a designer named Vincent Wolf, and he and I could not be more diametrically opposed from a style standpoint, from a presentation standpoint, the way we work, everything else. But we did some webinars for designers about basically how we present, how we charge, and we were totally transparent, saying, I charge this much per hour, and he'd say that much per hour, and whatever. And what was amazing was, literally by the end of it, we had like 500 and 600 people designers listening to our webinars, because we were being totally transparent, and there's not enough of that in our industry. So I would just say transparency and collegiality in terms of supporting each other. That we are all in the same business, and it's the issue of rising the tide as opposed to viewing other designers as competitors.
Yeah, no, and I'm so glad that you raised that issue, and would-be designers certainly need to be aware that there is a skepticism sometime about the whole fee structure and how designers work. And recently I was having a conversation actually, it was with the CEO of Waterworks, funny enough, my old boss, and we were talking about the reluctance of many people who are well-to-do, certainly have the affluence to hire an interior designer, but don't for various reasons. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, because I feel like this is a critical issue for the industry.
Well, again, I think so much of it is that so many people feel they've had or have heard about bad experiences with the designers. And so therefore they're very gun shy. They feel, gee, I don't want to go feel like I'm getting ripped off. I mean, I literally just talked to some friends who were using a designer, and they started telling me stories like, asking me questions. Is this normal? Is this legitimate? And I'm like, I hate to say it, but you've been ripped off. I mean, and again, this wasn't a famous designer. It was a youngish designer who was not being ethical. And so I understand the concern that a lot of people have about working with designers, and it's just why I always get on a soapbox about the importance of having this integrity and this transparency.
Yeah. So we'll talk about some more business-related things as we go along, and I want to remind all of you that we're going to open it up for questions towards the end. So think about your questions now, and if we don't get to something that's on your mind, we certainly will. But before we jump into some really spectacular images that we have of Timothy's work, tell us quickly making the transition. So you talked about you're working at night, you're getting clients, you get some pretty big name clients in the very early days, but tell us about making the transition before we jump into the work.
So again, I think that I started the way a lot of people do, which is just with friends asking me if I would help them. That was really, really how I started, and started doing more and more that way. And then, I mean, literally, I think, and Peggy knows this. It was early on. I worked with. It was a woman who, a famous singer, who came. She came to a party at my house, and she said, "I'd love to buy this house." And I said, "Well, thanks, it's not for sale, but I'll do one for you." And that's how we started working. We started working together, and so I then. But again, it was one that while it got published without my name on it, it wasn't the press that got me other work. It was the fact that other people knew that I was doing some of these jobs that helped develop that career. I think that it's about just continuing to do the work, continuing to do it. I would say I wouldn't recommend to you to go out on your own first, though. I would say go.
Thank you for saying that, Timothy. Tell us why.
Make the mistakes on someone else's dollar.
There you go.
You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I can't tell you how much I eat the mistakes of my employees. And these are sometimes seasoned designers. But when you haven't been doing it long, you will make a lot of mistakes. And I just think there's so much learning that can be done when you start working for another firm. And I would actually tell you, as if you can, start as an intern in different kinds of firms. Try a hospitality firm, try a commercial firm, try a residential firm, because what's right for one person will be totally wrong for another. And you don't know what that is until you get into it. And they're I can't even tell you how different commercial is versus residential or hospitality. They're very different experiences on a daily basis of how you work, what you do.
And what you think you're going to be doing in some of these firms, and what you actually discover you're doing when you get there, which is why, right? It's also so
absolutely.
important. Yeah. So great. Thank you for delivering that message, because I think that's such an important message. And I certainly hope that everyone is working on getting internships or finding opportunities, because there's lots of wonderful designers right here.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, I want to say that is that it doesn't matter what design school you go to. It does. As wonderful as New York School of Interior Design is, there are things that you will learn in an office that you will probably never learn in school, and I just think that it's that daily experience that will really help fill out your career, your education experience. So I would encourage you to, if you can, do some internship while you're in school. And even those of you who are doing a full-time job, if there's a way you can try to do it where you even say, listen, I'll come in on 4 hours on a Saturday, whatever it is, I would encourage you to do that.
Okay. We've got to jump into some images,
good.
though, because we've got to talk about some of your work.
Okay.
So this is an earlier book.
This is my last book, which came out in 2019. It was called The New Elegance, and it was really trying to show that you don't have to make a trade-off between how something looks and how it feels. And in the book, I really talked about one of the things that I learned about comfort is that there are three kinds of comfort. So, and I talk a lot about comfort. There's the obvious aspect of, and maybe we can go even to the next picture. Okay, well, that's the same picture, but this is even a perfect example. Is that comfort? There's the physical aspect of comfort, which is, is this chair soft? Is the fabric soft, etc. There's this psychological aspect, which is there symmetry? Is the furniture the right scale, etc. And then there's a third aspect, which is the practical aspect of comfort, which is, can I put this wet glass down and not worry about leaving a stain? Can I spill red wine and not worrying about it? So this is actually a good example because all that fabric, it's white, it's outdoor fabric. So it's solution dyed acrylic. So you can actually spill on it and not worry about it. That coffee table, which I designed, that's actually not leather, it's actually vinyl. But then the physical aspect of comfort, the outer edge of it is upholstered, but then it transitions to a hard edge. So you can put a glass down. Oftentimes with an Ottoman coffee table like this, you can't put the glass down because it's upholstered. Here it actually transitions. You can see there's a little seam where it transitions from the soft to the hard part. So you can put your foot up here and not jostle the drink down there. So again, this is interesting of trying to show the aspect of the three different kinds of comfort, but still in a beautiful, elegant setting.
See, you thought you knew what comfort meant, but turns out there are many layers.
So these first pictures are all from my last book. This is my former apartment in Paris, and again, you see here what you're seeing here is you're seeing symmetry in action. So again, the reason symmetry is so important is that you don't, when you go into a room that's symmetrical, your brain doesn't have to try to figure out what's going on. You can actually, you understand what it is. So I played that up. You can sort of see there are actually a pair of doors here which were not very practical because you couldn't put any furniture in there, so it wasn't comfortable. All you could have had is spindly little gold furniture. So what I instead did was cover those doors and then put this comfortable furniture around it. But again, I played up the aspect of the symmetry. So if there's a big painting on the left, there's the sort of pairing to it on the right, etc. So that's again seeing symmetry and comfort in action. The next one is actually my bedroom in that Paris apartment. This room was a totally asymmetrical room. The window was not centered on the room. The fireplace wasn't centered on the room. There were doors everywhere. And so I decided to disguise that lack of symmetry with this draping. What it also does is it also creates, as a bedroom, this sense of coziness, almost like you feel like a little cocoon. And so it was sort of a wonderful way to deal with the practical problems of the room. The next is a room in Los Angeles, and I showed this just to show that to me, and it's funny, I was at a talk a couple weeks ago, and people said, well, how do you deal with books? And I said, I'm like fanatic. My biggest passion, even bigger than Chateau, are books. I had to clean up piles of books that were usually all around these chairs for this picture. But again, it's really, about creating havens, places where people can feel really comfortable and at home. So that's really why I wanted to show this photo. This I'm showing because it's about bold use of color. Research is showing, and we're going to get into it a little more in a moment too, but there's more and more research showing the direct correlation between color and well-being, color and health, color and longevity. And so again, it's that aspect of bringing joyful colors together. This is a guest bedroom. It's too strong. I would never use this in a room that I was actually going to be in, day out. But as a guest bedroom, what a great treat. It's like, oh my goodness, I'm going on vacation. So again, I purposely showed this picture here of these bold use of colors of cobalt blue and orange together because, wow, you can't help but look at that and say, well, that's fun. And again, as a guest bedroom, why not have that?
So the guests just get the quick jolt of joy, and then, right, and then they leave, and
Yes,
then
exactly.
and
They
then
go
they're
back to their
happy.
mundane
Yes,
world.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm showing you some projects because I wanted to show you some like really glamorous, over-the-top projects. This is the royal palace for the Emir of Qatar, who is, Qatar is the richest country per capita in the world. It's a tiny little kingdom in the Middle East, and this was his beach villa. What's interesting, you can see that center picture. We wanted to, I don't know if you can see, there's also this very subtle trompe l'oeil where you're seeing some curtains that are on there, and there's palm trees, very subtly done. We wanted to make the ceiling of this rotunda to feel just almost luminous with the sky and the clouds, and we weren't getting there. So I had some specialty artists I brought it from Paris, and I said I want it to be pearly and lustrous, etc. Well, it just so happened that Qatar, before it discovered that it had the largest natural gas reserves in the world, also had been the pearl kingdom of the world. So it's capital of the world. So you can literally buy crushed pearls for nothing there. So we bought all these bags of crushed pearls and crushed them up even more and actually put them in the paint. So that ceiling, you can't tell now, but it literally has got pieces of pearl in it. So it's just kind of amazing. And this is just to show a bedroom, sort of over-the-top bedroom. And then we'll go. What we were trying to do, there's these two living rooms. We were trying to go for sort of a Palm Beach vibe. So we, sort of an Addison Meisner, so I actually copied the ceilings here. This was a total new construction that we did, and we did all the architecture and the detailing on this, et cetera. So we designed all the ceilings, and you can sort of see the two big sort of living rooms with sort of all, again, sort of neutral colors with neutrals with some pops of color. This is actually in a different wing of the Royal Palace. This is actually a reception wing, so we actually needed to have something that felt that it was a little more formal, where he could receive official guests, but we still wanted it to feel sort of a more natural, fresh vibe. So we did all the walls with trellis and lattice work, and on the right is the fact that it's right on the ocean, right on the sea. Is it the Red Sea? Or what sea is that? I'm blocking, whatever it is. But the sea that's there. And again, you sort of
Catherine, darling, what's the sea that's right by there?
The Arabian
Okay,
Sea.
thank you.
There you go.
There you
yes.
go.
So it began. So I found that this wonderful artist who did these are all the chandeliers, all made of individual porcelain fish, and then the fish that are on the a sculpture that are actually, it's a 3D relief sculpture of fish. So again, this was just a part of that same palace. Then I showed these two because I just wanted to show you bold uses of color. So the room on the left was a room we did in Los Angeles where all the ceiling is hand-painted fabric, and then we designed this mirrored table so they would look up and reflect the beautiful fabric. And the room on the right is in a national landmark house in Beverly Hills, which the clients loved, but they wanted it to feel hip and young. But it was so listed that there were so many things we couldn't do. So we actually had to keep the plaster ceiling, so we painted it high lacquer black. And this was the former library, and they're like, we don't read books. And I was like, well, we're probably not the same people. But anyway, they said, I said, well, what do you want to do? That again, this is an example of taking a room and making it work for them. They said, well, we'd like to turn it into a bar. So we decided to turn it into the Library of Liquor. And so now it has a sunken bar, and all the walls are done in a faux tortoiseshell that we had Warner Brothers do, and this big life-size Superman that's all done out of rock crystal that looks like he's flying in from outside. So again, it's
right.
It could not have been less look, but it was giving the client what they wanted. And I think that's, that's one of the key things. And again, so I'm now doing another project with these same clients in Miami where it's not my look, but I'm giving them the best version of what they want. And I think that's what I think a good designer does.
And do I recall that the Superman actually has the face of the client?
The client, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That is giving the client what they want, right? Yeah. Their likeness on the crystal Superman flying in over the bar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all joking aside, you do just want to give the client what they what they want.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And I will tell you, there are projects that I do that I say, I don't think I'm ever going to want to publish that. I don't want to. But they're happy, and that's what matters. And I really believe that is my job. It's not to impose my vision, but to give them the best version of what they want, the best version that I can of what they want.
How many other versions of this room did you show them first?
A lot.
I'm guessing. Yeah. I'm guessing you did.
And this I wanted to show just because it's just such an example also of taking spaces that you're not using. This was some clients that had a wonderful greenhouse that they're like, we don't care about plants, and it was just sitting empty. So we decided, actually, I had it air conditioned, we have it heated where the floors, there was heat coming up through the floors, and it became a room that became actually probably the second most used room in their house, because it's taking a space and figuring out how to make it useful for your needs. There are two different projects. One is on the left. This is, again, for the Emir of Qatar. This is an apartment in Paris, a house in Paris. And it was an entrance hall, and I wanted to go for really glamour with this incredible double mirrored hallway. And on the right is a room for the same client. It's one of the largest private houses in London. And again, it was a dark, depressing room in a listed building. So what we did was we actually used this incredible wallpaper that's actually made out of velvet and embossed, and added architectural detailing in the form of these columns. And again, it's just this bright, colorful room. And I would say that this is, and I'm going to get into it more in a moment, but as a designer, one of the things that I've really started focusing on is trying to figure out how to make spaces more joyful. I think for so many years we were in spaces that were gray and a little depressing, and actually there's a need and there's importance of bringing greater joy into all of our lives. So and again, so I've been actually researching things, colors, shapes, aspects that actually create joy in the way you experience a room. So that's a good feed into where we're going to be going.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about the things that seem to give you a great deal of joy.
Yes. So this is my new book, At Home in France, which, as I mentioned before, I've basically lived on and off in France since 1987, and so I wanted to do a book with the wonderful Rizzoli about my life in France, about some of the secrets, some of my favorite places in Paris, some of the favorite places in the countryside, and basically sort of an insider's guide from a design perspective, et cetera, to Paris. So we're not even going to get into today, but there's sections about the great house museums of Paris, famous French tastemakers, some of my favorite spots, and a guide to the arrondissements or districts of Paris, and as well as two pictures that I'm going to show you now, which are from my apartment in Paris.
So many reasons to buy the book. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Thank you. So this is the there are two living rooms. This is the daytime living room, and again, it's right.
The daytime living room.
Well, you'll see.
Yeah.
You're going to see the nighttime next door.
Yeah.
It's basically one big living room that's connected, but it's the daytime living room, and it's where you come in. That's all that light furniture is, again, all solution dyed acrylic. It's all outdoor fabric, so you don't have to worry about how you spill and you live in that room. So it's normally you wouldn't have all that light furniture right as you walk in the door. But again, what you're seeing here is you're seeing symmetry. You're seeing the cabinets with the mirrors over, et cetera, and it's all good, and the fireplace. It's all going to make sense when you see the next picture because it's the opposite end of the same sort of room, which is again. So those doors.
The nighttime living room.
Yes,
yeah.
The doors were there. And I put, again, I didn't want you to go into those doors, so I put consoles and paintings over them. But again, the nighttime living room is that's silk velvet. So it's like if you look at it, it stains. And, but again, it's got a practical surface then of this mirrored table that I designed for Schumacher. That again, you don't have to worry about stains. But it's again, so the two rooms open onto each other, where there's a divider between them. But the symmetry is there, and again, it's that aspect of symmetry that makes the whole space feel so much more comfortable.
So when friends come over and you think they're more apt to spill, you bring them to this room?
Absolutely.
They're a little unsteady with their hand, with the wine glass? Can I show you the daytime?
Exactly.
Okay.
Or depending on what I'm serving. So.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, but the nighttime living room's a little bit more vulnerable to
much more vulnerable.
Okay.
Yes. So,
okay.
So I think those are all the pictures we're going to show. But then we're going to go move into the country. I think is what's next. So I have to tell you, you thought you were coming to hear about a talk, but actually,
really, yeah.
My name is Timothy.
Here we go.
And I am a chateauholic.
Yes. This is a real condition, it turns out.
So I got to tell you, when I started with this, as I mentioned, when I was living in Paris back in the 80s, I bought a country house, and I loved it. It was wonderful. And then I thought, well, I want to try something a little bigger. It's kind of like most addictions. You maybe start with beer, and then you go on to the hard stuff. Well, I went from
I'm sure some of you know, yes. Sure. I mean...
I started with a manor house, and then I bought, I got this chateau that's on the upper left called Chateau de Blainville, which was a lovely chateau outside of Chartres, where the cathedral is. But it was it was a...
No, it was lovely, but...
Yeah,
sure, I mean...
It was a lovely Louis XIII period chateau, so it's 17th century, and a little bit like Goldilocks, who can't find the chair that's just right. After a couple of years, I realized that it just was a little plain.
A little cramped, a little, yeah. You know how that can be in the chateau, where you just feel like it's a little tight or something? Yeah. No, I get that.
Yeah, so I bought the one that's on the upper right, which was Chateau de Galeron, which was a 15th century chateau, and it's a real castle, because and this shows the difference in style over centuries of chateau, because chateau originally were meant to be fortresses. They were meant to keep out the bad guys, and so they had these turrets and towers, and you can see very small windows. The problem is that it has very small windows, so you don't get a lot of light in them. And then the walls are so thick. They were 3-foot thick walls. So by the time the light got through those little openings and into the room, they were really dark. So it was a wonderful chateau. I loved it. It was featured in Architectural Digest, and I probably would have stayed there, even though it was a little too dark. But I heard about this third.
But I heard about another chateau,
which is on the. Very few people can tell you the story. So, it was a Chateau de Grand-Lucé, which was actually owned by the French government. It was one of the 8 chateaux the French government owned, and like Versailles and Fontainebleau, et cetera. But it was one that they had never really restored. You couldn't go inside. The gardens weren't that well done, and so it wasn't getting a lot of tourists visiting it. So they decided to sell it. And it wasn't a question of how much you were going to pay for it. It was a question of what you were going to do to this building. And so Alain Passard, the famous Michelin 3-star chef, was going to turn it into a restaurant, and someone else was going to chop it up and turn it into apartments. Someone else was going to turn it into a hotel, and I was going to turn it into a private house. Well, the National Monument people, it had to be voted on by the French Senate, and the National Monument architects basically went to the Senate and said, we consider this to be one of the finest examples of neoclassical architecture in France. You cannot sell it to whomever is going to chop it up and bastardize what it is. You need to sell it to whomever is going to restore it as a private, to what it was originally. Well, there was only one person dumb enough to do that.
Crazy enough to say he was going to turn it into his private home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it created a big uproar in France, because sort of it's contrary to the French Revolution, where things going from private into public hands. So this is going from public hands and public money into private hands. And then it was going to a foreigner. And actually, one of the press wrote, that you cannot sell. It became a big issue in France. You cannot sell one of our crown jewels to a rich American who buys and sells chateau like playthings that no longer give him pleasure. That was a direct quote. and at the time I thought, well, that's so unfair. And looking back,
That's
I
not
kind of
me at all,
realized-
he says, just because I've gone through several other chateaus already.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Just shows how blind we can be. Anyway, so finally the president or the vice president of the French Senate had to say, "Here's who we're giving it to," and he said, "And we're just lucky. Yes, he's American, but we're just lucky to find someone with broad enough shoulders to take this on." What I had not counted on, that was kind of like a French code word for saying finding someone who as stupid to didn't realize how expensive this was going to be. So I did renovate it. The roof alone was close to $8 million to redo because it had to be all slate roof. I redid all the gardens. It was an amazing chateau. I actually lived there for 9 years. It required 5 full-time gardeners.
5 full-time gardeners were needed
and
to
2
maintain
more
it.
in the summertime. I mean, it was
More in the summer.
It was a crazy, crazy, crazy thing. So I finally said, I've got to sell this, and when I did sell it, and when I sold it, all my friends and family were like, "Oh, thank God he got that out of his system." And
Little did they know.
And I did too. I thought it was out of my system for a little while, but then after like 3 or 4 months, I started looking at the internet.
3 or 4 months. Yeah.
And finally, a good friend said to me, "You know what? I've got to put my foot down. Before you go any further, you have got to go see a therapist."
Thankfully, there was an intervention.
And they said, because clearly, either you weren't given enough Lego toys or Lincoln Logs when you were a kid, so you're still trying to build it, or you really think that you are Louis XIV, but you need to go see a therapist. And so I did go see a therapist, really did. And it was so interesting because she was the perfect therapist, but she said, well, you know, the problem is, because I've lost money on all of those, so you lose money every time.
Timothy said to me recently, "Oh, you know, I'd have so much more money if I didn't have all those chateaus." Yeah, so relatable, right? Yeah.
But the therapist said, you know what? Your problem is you're thinking of it as a real estate investment. You're thinking of it from a typical American perspective of you buy a piece of real estate, you expect to sell it at a profit. Reframe this purchasing, this addiction you have, reframe it as your hobby. Reframe it as your passion. Do you expect to make money from your golf? Do you expect to make money from your boat if you own a boat? No. So think of it as your hobby. And once I did, I thought that made sense. And then I thought, as a designer, I actually used it as my canvas, that it allowed me to play with things, to try things on a very grand scale with lots of bedrooms, lots of colors, lots of everything, so that as a designer, I actually realized it was this luxury that I had to be able to continue to play and develop myself as a designer. So I literally went from that session with a therapist, and I went home to
that enabling therapist, that we're going to find out who that is.
I went home to my partner, Kathleen, and I said, "Pack your bags, we're going chateau shopping." So, and so I looked at
the all clear has been given by the psychiatric community.
Yes. And so I went and looked at over 50 chateaux and ended up buying the chateau that you see on the lower right, Chateau de la Chevalerie.
Because how could you resist it?
Well, it didn't look anywhere near this good, but it was just this amazing chateau. It's been called the Versailles of the Fields because it's this little jewel box of a chateau that's just set literally in the woods and with streams running around and things like that. So that was, and I'm going to show you some pictures of that chateau. So. Before, this was the last chateau. This was the really grand chateau. But to get a sense, 22-foot ceilings there, amazing paneling. The room on the right was all painted by the artist Jean-Baptiste Pimont, who was sort of the father of chinoiserie, of chinoiserie painting, etc. This is one of only 3 rooms in the world that Pimont has painted. So it was just an amazing, amazing chateau. We're going to go, though, to the new chateau. And this is the new chateau, which has this incredible 3-story entrance hall. And I decided to, it's very common to find to find a couple portraits in a chateau entrance hall, I decided to put portraits on sort of on steroids, and so it's a mixture of all different qualities of portraits, very inexpensive things that I found at the flea market, up through a John Singer Sargent and an Ingres, and so it's a whole mixture. It's got things, it's portraits of dogs and horses and kings. It's got my father's caricature from his college fraternity, but it's just all different portraits, including a wonderful photo portrait that Robert Mapplethorpe did of the singer Grace Jones, painted, her whole body's painted by Keith Haring. So it's just this, it's meant to not take itself too seriously. So we go from that room to this room next door, which again has incredible paneling, but again, this is, I intentionally made the first room you enter basically all white, or very, in terms of white fabric, white rug. Again, and I did that intentionally. It's all, again, solution dyed acrylic. These are actually some of my new fabrics for perennials, which just came out this year, and even the rug is solution dyed acrylic. So again, dogs can pee on it, you can put permanent magic marker, you can spill red wine, and it all cleans up. So I intentionally wanted to sort of say, this is a comfortable space. And the furniture is not the furniture you'd expect to find in a chateau. It's almost like an English country house. Yes, it has some gilding, but that's just sort of the accent pieces. Where you sit is all about comfort. The next room is the yellow salon next door, and this really starts to show some of the things that made this room so special. Oh, you can't see it though. Over the doors, there are these amazing carvings, literally 6 feet wide, 3 feet high, of the Four Seasons that are just incredible, all carved out of wood. But again, it's outdoor fabric, it's an outdoor rug, so again, it's about practicality and it's about comfort. The room next door is the library. This is paneling that's from the Directoire period, so it's very late 18th century, early 19th century. The paneling was installed in 1802, and it's just this wonderful, moody library. It had originally been covered in fabric, the walls, where the mirrors are. And as I was taking off the old fabric, I discovered that there were clips, and that there originally had been mirror there. So I had these wonderful aged antique mirrors fit into the room. And again, that's not a solution dyed acrylic rug. It's actually a hide rug that I created for Kyle Bunting. So it's actually cowhide, because again, think about cows who've been rolling in mud and things like that. It's all about practicality. So another aspect about practicality is using your rooms. I mentioned that earlier about the importance of using your rooms, and if you're not using your room, figure out why. It had an incredible chapel that was dark brown, stained wood, incredibly depressing. There was only one door into it, and I said, I'm never going to use that as a chapel. So I had it desanctified, and I gave all the contents of the chapel to my brother, who's an Episcopal minister, and has his own chateau around 45 minutes away from mine.
Sure, it runs in the family. Did we not mention that? Yeah.
Yeah, and so now his chapel has all the contents of my chapel, of my former chapel. But you can see now it becomes this wonderful, lovely breakfast room. So again, it's using the space for the way I live today. The next is that there were originally in the chateau, there were a total of 3 bathrooms, and I think 25 bedrooms. And so I took every other bedroom and turned it into a bathroom. And so now there are 13 bedrooms with their own bathrooms. So this is just one of the bedrooms, and I purposely tried to make them all feel a little different, from a color standpoint, et cetera. And I think this is maybe the last photo we're showing of this. This is my bedroom, which was, again, it was not originally a bedroom. It was a artist studio, which was on the ground floor. It had 18-foot ceilings, and so it was such a great room. I thought, if it's another living room, I'll never use it. I mean, how many living rooms do you need? So I decided to turn it into my bedroom, and it's just, because it's really opens up onto the gardens. I designed it with this wallpaper that I designed for the English company Fromental, which is, it's all sort of hand-painted scenes of French gardens, and then brought the trellis work down below. And again, to give you a sense of how tall this is, that chandelier is 6 feet tall. So it's got a lot of scale. But it's a wonderful, wonderful, magical room that really feels like you are in the countryside.
So Timothy, before we get into some products that you've worked on, talk to us a little bit more about what you are learning about joy and why you think this is so important now.
It's interesting. It's not just about joy. It's about well-being. It's about the way we live in spaces and what spaces do for us. More and more research is showing a direct correlation between how we feel about the spaces, even not necessarily consciously feel about the spaces that we're in and our well-being. Just to give you a sense, there was a fascinating study that I heard about from the dean of my University of Miami School of Architecture, who said there's been a study about low-income housing all over the world. And they looked at the low-income housing, they looked at the style of architecture in this low-income housing. And those people who were living in plain boxes, whatever color they were, but without any architectural detailing, and very plain and very clean and very simple, actually had higher health problems, they had higher unhappiness levels, and higher crime rates than in those low-income housing versus that had some architectural detailing. Because whether you're aware of it or not, it helps elevate you. It's that aspect of we take for granted that about our surroundings, and our surroundings really have a huge impact on us. So I've been doing a lot of work in terms of color theory. I never was lucky enough to take color theory the way you're probably taking it here, but again, the direct impact of different colors and how I now will use colors. If I know that we want to evoke something in a certain room, I'll actually recommend certain colors to the clients because of what it does. Green is an amazing color. Green, actually, the reason they use it for green rooms, before you go into theater, et cetera, is that it does two things, which is so interesting. It actually calms you, which is one of the things you want to feel before you go on stage, for example, but it energizes you at the same time without depleting it. So it's this wonderful combination of calming and energizing. It's also the color of health, which is why it's used all around the world. For the cross, the green cross, for example, in Paris, is the sign for a pharmacy because it's a healthy color. Yellow, which I've shown a lot here. Yellow, actually, people perceive yellow as being a brighter room than a white room. Benjamin Moore did some tests where they took the same room, they painted it 50, or maybe it was 20 different colors. And then they said, which room makes you feel this? Which room makes you feel that? When they said, which room is the brightest room? The yellow room, which is not as bright as the white room, literally like 2 to 1, people said that was the brighter room because your eye translates it to sunlight. So it's coming back to looking at all these aspects which we take for granted of how we feel. Then it gets to there's a wonderful book called Joyful that I read last year. That literally it was a woman who went to Parsons and then she started doing a study on joy, and she realized that joyfulness is something that we need more of in our life. But she started doing research of what causes joy. Polka dots cause joy. Circles cause joy versus a lot of straight lines. I mean, it's different elements, different textures, different things. And so I've really started looking at that and trying to figure out how do I introduce more joy into the rooms. For many years, I was focusing on comfort, and now I feel like the next step is how to elevate. That's a basic, you want to feel comfortable, you want to feel safe, you want to feel secure, but then how do you elevate it to the next level? Because that's the next level of healthiness, it's the next level of personal transformation.
Yeah, so wonderful to keep in mind from a design perspective and thinking about taking care of your clients, which is, I think, part of what designers do, whether they recognize it or not. So let's talk about some of the many products that you've
So I just want to say, I'm going to talk just very briefly about is one of the things that I love doing is designing products for companies. And one of the reasons that I love it is I realize it actually marries so well my career in marketing and trying to figure out what a consumer wants and design. So I've done a wonderful collection for Schumacher fabrics and wallpapers and trims, and actually this new fabric you're seeing right here are part of a new collection we just launches this week from Schumacher. But I've done that. I've done from the Italian linen company called Dea, which is probably one of the finest linen companies. Beautiful bed linens, because again, what's so amazing, we spend the majority of our life, if you're going to take one place, it's in bed, and good bed linens make a huge difference. So that's been a fun one. The next one that I want to show is Perennials, which is, again, Perennials is the company that really transformed what's called performance fabrics, performance materials, which it's about, up until Perennials, you actually had to make a trade-off between like awning weight fabric, which was heavy and stiff and usually just striped. And they said, let's create this outdoor fabric indoors. And so they created fabrics and rugs, and this is from my second collection for them. And Samuel & Sons, which is a wonderful company that creates trims and passementerie and fringe. And I think that's very much from my experience of living in France all these years, where the French really, textiles are such an important part of the French look, the French design. So it's been fun to work with them on that. The next is Fromental, which is a wallpaper company, as I mentioned, which you can sort of see the pink. On the pink is the wallpaper that you saw in my bedroom in a different colorway, and the one on the left was a wallpaper I did called Spring Fever, which was in a room that I did for Kips Bay Show House a couple of years ago. And then on the right is Kyle Bunting, which those are all hide rugs. THG Paris, which is interesting, and I'm actually really almost the most proud of these two, because these are French manufacturers. THG is sort of take Waterworks or Cheryl Wagner and then go up another level. It's the most
easy.
Sorry, the most luxurious plumbing fixtures. I mean, to give you a sense, I think like that set is something like $5,000. I mean, it's really expensive. That's black onyx that's mixed in there, et cetera. But when a French company came to me, and Philippe Starck and André Putman and some of the great French designers have done collections, and when they came to me and asked to do this collection, it was a great honor. This collection has actually just been picked up by the Orient Express train line, and it's going to be in all their cars. Which is exciting. And on the right is Royal Limoges, which is the oldest porcelain company in France. And what was fun about that was that they said to me, gee, people aren't buying fine china anymore because they can't put it in the dishwasher or microwave. And most fine china has gold on it. So I encouraged them to figure out how to get gold on porcelain and still be able to put it in the microwave and still put it in the dishwasher. And they did, and we developed it, and I said, well, now you've got to put it on the back that it's dishwasher and microwave safe. And they said, oh, no, Mr. Corrigan, that would be just too vulgar. And I said, well, it may be vulgar, but no one's going to believe you if you don't. And they did, and this is now the #1 bridal china in America. So it's really wonderful to see that. And again, I think it's the mixture of my marketing background and really understanding what consumers want, figuring out how to deliver it, and then figuring out how to do it from a design perspective.
And Timothy, before we open it up for questions, which we're just about to do, your love of France, what is it that the French understand so well about beauty, about elegance?
I should ask our guest from France here, but I would say
we'll call on our guest from Versailles later.
I would say to me is that. A reverence for their history, for the arts. I mean, France was the artistic capital of the world for several hundred years, so it's so steeped in it that I think it's almost a part of the French DNA today. And you see that. You'll go to a little museum in the middle of nowhere, and you'll see on a Sunday, and it's not even a big exhibit, and there's whole families that are there, and the parents are showing the kids and things like that. It's that I think it's that reverence that is instilled in them that's a part of who they are that makes it so special. I mean, you looked at the Olympic opening ceremonies, and whether you liked it or not,
that went terribly well, right? Yeah.
Well, but it was amazing. It was. I mean, there were some parts that I thought, oh, that's a little too much, but it was. It was an amazing experience. So. I think that would be what I would say.
No, it was spectacular, and some of the venues that they created for the Olympics were absolutely spectacular. So I mean, no, it was an incredible celebration of that city, and really spectacular what they did. But it's funny because somebody in the audience was asking me, well, how come he doesn't love the English countryside as much as he loves, and I think it just spoke to you from a very young age.
And it's very interesting because my brother and I both, we cannot figure out what it is because we both grew up in Southern California, and it's like, what's this connection with the French countryside? But we both feel more at home in the French countryside than we do anywhere else in the world. So.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about this, but Timothy's travel schedule is sort of unimaginable. But I mean, just tell people quickly.
We're currently working in 7 different countries around the world and 13 states in America. So I literally go around the world once a month.
Once a month he goes around the world.
I go to Asia, India, Middle East, work my way across Europe, and then work my way across U.S. So it's, and I spend 1 week a month in our office in Paris, 1 week in Los Angeles, and the other time just traveling. So it's a lot, and it's a little too much.
It's a little too much, yeah.
But
we're going to work on that too. Once we figure out the chateau issue for him, then we're going to work on the
so
travel.
help me with that one next.
Yeah.
But again, I feel so lucky to be getting to work on such amazing projects all around the world, and I feel so blessed to be doing something that I so love, and that literally, if you'd asked me, when I got out of college, I would have never. Design was about the last thing I would have ever said, and I look at it and say, my gosh, I've been so incredibly lucky.
As tired as he is. Okay, Karen, you've got a microphone. Who's got a question? Who wants to raise?
Please ask any question about anything.
He is open.
Come on, inquiring minds.
Don't be afraid. Okay, over here in the back. And in the front too. Okay, we'll start in the front. We'll work our way back.
In the Green Library, in the current chateau, the paint manufacturer and the color name.
I don't know the color name, but literally all the paints are Benjamin Moore. Benjamin Moore literally just moved into France when I started this project. They were not in existence there. And what was so fascinating working with the people at Benjamin Moore is that, and as a designer, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you that I didn't even know this, that there are absolute different varieties of Benjamin Moore paint, depending on whether it's drywall, whether it's wood, whether it's plaster. And so they literally worked with me on every single surface to sort of say, okay, what type of this green do you want? I mean, it's not just a question of whether it's flat or semi-gloss or eggshell. It's what is actually the consistency. And there's really no other paint company. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like a commercial for Benjamin Moore, but there's no other paint company that has the diversity of product that they have. So I was so lucky to get to work with them on this project.
Okay, fantastic. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay, so I love all the antiques you pull, and I love going to flea markets myself, so I love that you do that. In terms of making those pieces comfortable, what is your process with that, or who do you reach out to do some of that restoration? Okay,
so I will have to say that for 90% of the seating that we do, I don't use antiques. I will sometimes for dining chairs, but even then, they are not necessarily. I've had lots of experiences where I've used dining chairs and people lean back, et cetera, and then they break. And then the problem is not that they've broken, but the people then feel horrible about having broken your chair, and it just makes everyone feel uncomfortable. So I really try to focus on seating, on more. On basically stuff that we've made, and then everything else I try to go with antiques. And the other thing I would just sort of say, and since there's no antique dealers in the room, I hope I can say this, is buying at flea markets or buying at auction is the way to go. Basically, if you're buying at auction, you're bidding against antique dealers and other designers, and very few consumers, direct consumers. So you're basically buying at wholesale. And an antique dealer is going to buy it and mark it up 3 to 4 times. So I love doing that, and I will say that we do that with our clients, and they're always so shocked, and they're saying, "I can buy this so cheaply," and I'm like, "Yes." And they say, "Well, I wish my other designers had told me that," and I'm just like, "Well, most designers don't do it because it's more work to buy it at auction." And you don't make as much money on it because you're paying 4 times the price, and you're marking it up, et cetera. But to me, that's again one of those services that I feel like we provide our clients is we're buying at auction all around the world all the time, and it's not that difficult now with the internet because you really can buy with search engines all around the world.
And are there specific sites that you like to use, Live Auctioneers?
Yeah, so I would say for the U.S. there's one called Live Auctioneers, which is excellent. It does almost every auction house in America. In Europe, there's one called Drouot, DROUOT.com. And in England, there's one called The Sale Room. And I mean, I literally was on both those sites just before I came here. So they're great ways to shop for antiques when you're out doing that.
Okay. Yes, in the back.
I was wondering, what advice would you give for someone looking for a design job in France? And did you like working in America or France better?
Okay, let me ask you.
Challenging.
What's interesting about the different, there are differences in the French and American, at least today, the French and American ways of design, is that the French are actually much better than most Americans French designers today, younger designers, et cetera, with Photoshop, with all those other things. I'm routinely taking presentations that our Paris office does and showing it to the people in LA and sort of saying, look what
Really?
look what
So they're
doing in
much more
Paris.
tech-savvy?
Much
Okay.
better at it. I mean, it's interesting. Whereas I don't necessarily find them as I don't want to say creative, but they tend to stick in their own lane, so they tend not to mix. It's part of the reason that these French companies came to me, is they said that the French designers if it's a Louis XV room, they're not going to put a Louis XIV piece of furniture in it, or they're much more rigid in terms of the way they think from a design perspective, and so I find them less adventurous from that perspective. So I think they have different strengths. So that was the second question. The first question was, if you're going to start working in design, again, I would say it's you have to be fluent in French to be able to work in a French design firm. Just as we probably have to be fluent in English to work in an American one, but you really need to. But all French design firms take internships as well.
Okay. If there's another question here, and I think this will be our last one because I know we've got some people want to get books and. All right.
I love what you said about wanting to make design spaces that make people feel good, and all of the pictures that you showed us were of residential spaces, and I'm just wondering if you've worked on any spaces that are not residential and more focused on wellness, and if not, do you hope to one day? We have done. Majority of what I've done, we do is residential. I've done some hospitality. I've done a new restaurant that's going to be opening here in New York in next winter. But one of the things that I've actually wanted to do is look at the aging. Well, two things. One is biodiverse. I'm sort of neurodiversity design and how you address that. Because I think that's becoming an increasing issue that we need to be looking at. So I would say that, and the other aspect that I really would like to look at is figure out how to do a better job with senior living, because I don't think we've done. I think the need is huge, and I don't think there's any really great options with that. They're doing a lot more. Italy, for example, is really doing a great job with that, and starting to explore different ways of mixing people at all different ages and things like that. But that's another thing that I'd really like to look at. So.
Well, and that's actually something I was going to ask you. So, I mean, are there countries that you see are doing that well? So what is Italy doing from a design perspective?
It's not even necessarily from a design perspective as much as the understanding that, at least with aging, the importance of mixing people from all different ages. So they're not creating these ghettos with old people in them. They're actually creating spaces where people of all ages are living, and it's creating greater health for the older people, but it's also so important for younger people to be interacting with older people, as opposed to what we do, which is sort of create, as I say, these sort of aged out ghettos.
So before we let you go, Timothy, and I go over to books, what do you most look for? You talked earlier about how much you appreciate hiring people who have had other careers, and you listed all sorts of other careers that people have had. What do you look for most in someone that wants to come and work for you?
Great question. Hunger and curiosity. People who
are always questioning, wondering, trying to find the greatest new supplier, trying to figure out why that red is that red, what the history of cerulean is. I don't care what, it doesn't matter almost what it is that curiosity is about, but it's about the act of that curiosity, because I think that's what pushes us as designers. And then I would say it's the hunger, and I think people who've done it, who are doing this as a second career or coming to it after having thought they wanted something else, probably have that hunger a little more, because they actually realize that they found their own passion. And again, it's that aspect of wanting to succeed at that. And again, this is such an amazing industry. It is unlike so many industries. And when people say, gee, I want my life-work balance, I'm like, then you're in the wrong industry. Because if you love what you're doing...
Deliver that message again for the kids in the audience.
No, but wait a second. No, wait. I want to say this one clear. If you're loving what you're doing, it's not a question of life work. It's all wonderful. And I think that's what's so key, is that the people in my office, they love it. They breathe it. And so they're not like also, I mean, yes, I mean, it's not, they all go out at night, they do other things, I mean, whatever. But they're also, they love what they're doing. And it's not like, oh my God, this is my day and this is my work and this, you know. And I would just sort of say, that's what's so great about our industry, is that people are supportive. They're mutually supportive of each other, and we're all passionate about what we do. And those of you who are students, you are going into really the best industry you could ever imagine. So I encourage you to follow on this path.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things that we are so striving to do through the Dialogues on Design program is to bring extraordinary people before you and let you hear from them and learn from them. And again, if you can model yourself in ways after Timothy Corrigan, many doors will open for you and opportunities. And I just encourage you all to look at what he does and how he does it, because he is extraordinary. So will you please join me in thanking him for joining us here tonight?
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'd be delighted to sign a book for you or anything you want. But thank you so much. And any other questions you have?
Absolutely.
Thank you.